Welcome, everyone. I'm Dick Deming. I'm Medical Director of Mercy One Cancer Center in Des Moines and also the founder of Above and Beyond Cancer. Welcome to our weekly cancer education series. It's brought to you in part by a grant from the Iowa Oncology Society. And our topic tonight is Cancer Support Community, which is kind of a concept, but it's also a name of a great organization that's in eastern Iowa that helps provide support for patients and for survivors and families. So our guests tonight are Joy Bush. Joy is the Executive Director of Cancer Support Community. And we also have Kelsey Allen, and Kelsey is the Program Director. So welcome, Joy and Kelsey.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having us.
And so we're going to talk about, patient support. But before we do that, let's get to know you a little bit. So, Joy, you're the Executive Director of Cancer Support Community. And tell us a little bit about yourself. Where did you grow up?
So I grew up in Iowa, in a really small town, Rockford, Iowa, up near Mason City, Clear Lake area. Lived there all my life, and then attended college at Iowa State University. And then started with Bon Mar right out of college and worked for them for about 20 years. And so I've always been in Iowa all through my childhood, and then obviously as an adult too.
So back to Rockford, how many in your high school class in Rockford?
There was 67 in my graduating class.
Okay.
Which was one of the bigger classes.
And what was your claim to fame in high school?
Ooh, my claim to fame. Probably sports. I would say basketball. That's probably what I was most known for.
Okay. And then when you went to Iowa State, what was your first declared major?
So first declared major was fashion merchandising, which will probably bring up the topic, how in the world did I end up in the nonprofit world? Yes. But that was, I knew from about the time I was really involved in 4-H. And so I knew I wanted to be a buyer. And so I picked that school because they had one of the best programs, and never changed my major, got done in 4 years. So I was on a good track.
And maybe give us a little picture of how you got from fashion design, Von Maur, to being the executive director of a nonprofit providing support to cancer patients.
Sure. So I worked for Von Maur. I was with them as a buyer for almost 20 years. And life happened, I say. My husband was diagnosed at the age of 45 with a terminal appendix cancer. We had 3 young girls. And so with that job, I traveled a ton. So I was, the caregiver for him, trying to manage his diagnosis, take care of our kids, handle my, working full time, traveling, all of that. Thank goodness my mom, who was a nurse, she would come down and help me when I would travel. So she was a huge blessing to me during that time. So my husband passed away about 6 months after he was diagnosed. And then 6 months after my husband passed away, my mom was diagnosed with glioblastoma and passed away about 9 weeks after she was diagnosed. So when that all happened, I was like, I need to make a career change. I can't be a single mom and travel, but had no idea what I wanted to do. And so I knew I wanted to do something to give back, but didn't really know a lot about careers in the nonprofit world. And so a friend had reached out to me that Gilda's Club was looking for a development director, and would I be interested? He knew that I was looking for something, and went and interviewed and realized that it was a lot of using my business background and just building relationships, which is what I loved about what I was doing. And so it just kind of seemed like a natural fit.
Great. Well, thank you for sharing your story. I'm so sorry for your loss, but it's clearly something that dramatically changed your life and changed your career.
For sure.
Yeah. Well, let's ask Kelsey now a little bit about herself, and then we'll talk more about the organization. So, Kelsey, where are you from, and where did you grow up?
Yeah, so I grew up in the small town of Comanche, Iowa, which is about 45 minutes just outside of the Quad Cities. Pretty small town. I'm one of 7 children, so I come from a big family.
Where are you in the birth order?
I'm right in the middle, actually, which is a fun place to be. I have the best of both worlds, kind of older siblings and younger siblings.
And how many in your high school class in Comanche?
Yeah, so very small town. I think I graduated about 76 in my class.
Okay. What was your claim to fame in high school?
I know. I was thinking about that as you asked Joy, and I have to say, I was voted in the yearbook as the best person to take home to mom and dad, and so I definitely told my in-laws that as I was meeting them for the first time, like your son picked a good one.
All right. And then what did you do the year after you graduated from high school?
Yeah, so I knew from a pretty early age that I wanted to pursue social work just from some life experiences. And so I pursued college and then a master's in social work at the University of Iowa.
All right. What was your first job when you got your master's of social work?
I actually started off in child welfare. And then I landed myself in a position. I was an ombudsman for long-term care facilities, which then led me to hospice care, which I did that for about 5 years prior to coming on to Gilda's Club or Cancer Support Community.
Okay. Well, great. Well, thank you for sharing that. And so we've already heard the term Gilda's Club. So let's we'll bring all of us back on the screen here and give us a little bit of history of Gilda's Club, and then the transition to the current title of Cancer Support Community. And then we'll talk about what Cancer Support Community does and all of the different programs you have, but maybe a little bit of the background of how Gilda's Club got started, and then the transition to the current title of Cancer Support Community.
Yeah, I can go ahead and take this one. And Joy, feel free to jump in if I miss any piece of the history. But most people know who Gilda Radner is, and hopefully you know who Gilda Radner is. She was a wonderful comedian on Saturday Night Live. She was actually the first female casted. She had ovarian cancer she was diagnosed in 1986 and unfortunately died from her disease in 89. Her psychotherapist, Joanna Boll, and her husband, Gene Wilder, actually started Gilda's Club worldwide in 1995. Fast forward a couple years later, we were the 7th in the nation to open our doors in the Quad Cities. So we were Gilda's Club Quad Cities for about 25 years. And then fast forward to 2009, the wellness community, which is where Gilda Radner actually received her support while going through her cancer diagnosis, and Gilda's Club Worldwide actually merged to become Cancer Support Community. And that is part of our national name as well. And then fast forward to just last summer in 2024, we rebranded our local network name to Cancer Support Community Iowa Northwest Illinois at Gilda's Club. We felt like it was more inclusive of the service area. We received a grant through the Iowa Cancer Consortium, which kind of jump-started that, although it was part of our long-term plan to take on more of the state of Iowa. So it just was kind of that driving force and the push in the right direction to be able to do that.
And Kelsey, when Gilda's Club started, and I certainly remember Gilda Radner and Gene Wilder, and was it initially just for women with ovarian cancer, or from the very beginning was it more inclusive of all types of cancer?
It was very inclusive of all types of cancer from the get-go. So where she had received her care through the wellness community, which was a similar concept, except for they didn't serve children and they didn't serve the bereaved. And so when they created Gilda's Club Worldwide, they wanted to be more inclusive of the whole cancer trajectory and including all of the family unit when receiving that support. So that's kind of the difference between where she received her support and where the vision for Gilda's Club Worldwide.
And in the United States, is your Gilda's Club was the only one in Iowa? Is that correct? Or were there others in Iowa?
Yeah, so to date, there's about 196 locations, but we are the only physical location in the state of Iowa. And then because we do serve some of the Illinois side, the closest location on the Illinois side is the Chicago region. So we're just very fortunate to have had this started in the Quad Cities. We feel like we've made such a difference for our community, and we feel like we can do so much more by kind of taking on a little bit more of the state of Iowa.
And the model when it started and the model now, do you actually have a facility? Do you have a building? You have
We do. So I will just give you a little bit of history of that too. So for about 22 years of our 26 years of existence, we sat in a big, beautiful mansion in the Quad Cities. And we made the decision in 2020 to sell that property and move into both hospital locations in the Quad Cities. So we have two different separate hospital systems, and we have spaces in both hospitals right next to the cancer center, which really has allowed us to increase our awareness and serve people right where they're at when they're getting treatment.
So you've come into the cancer center and collaborate very, very closely, both in terms of programs and obviously physically with the cancer centers.
We do, yeah. We just were crunching numbers, end of year numbers just this week. I know Joy's getting ready to present on those numbers to our board this Friday, but just last year we've had such an increase in our walk-ins and our new participants. I think we had like 100, and Joy, please correct me if I'm wrong, but about 150% increase in the people served for like first time visitors, like coming in for the first time.
Great. And maybe we'll bring Joy on. And Joy, could you outline the various services that you provide? And do you provide the same services at both locations, or does one location specialize in certain things and the other location specialize in others?
Yeah, so we have 5 core components, and we do all 5 of those core components at both locations. So some of the programs might differ slightly, and they're held like on different days, so people can attend both locations regardless of where they're receiving treatment. So although we're in the hospitals, we're separate from them and run separately from them. But probably what we're most well known for is our support groups. So we do support groups for the person with the diagnosis, friends, family, caregivers, and then children. And we have a couple specialty support groups too for cancer specific. So we do a breast and gynecological cancer and a prostate support group. And then we're just getting ready to launch here, I believe in second quarter, a support group for those with advanced and terminal diagnosis. So that's our support groups. And the beauty of our programs is everybody comes on one night together, and then they break out into each of their groups. So everybody can come as a family. We do a meal before support groups, so they can come and just socialize, and then they separate out and are connecting with those people that are going through something similar. So that happens at both locations.
Are different days of the week, or both locations the same night?
Different days of the week. So Tuesday night is in our Davenport location, and then Wednesday nights are in our Moline location. And then the other groups, Kelsey, you'd have to tell me, I think, are those Thursday nights, Kelsey, that are once a month, the specialty ones?
Yep. So our breast and gynecological and prostate are on Thursdays. And then we also do have a bereavement group that meets twice a month as well, and that's on Thursdays.
Okay. And are those groups that you just mentioned, are those all in person, or are there virtual options?
Go ahead, Kelsey.
Those groups are all in person at this time. We do have 2 as well. So if somebody doesn't want to come in person, but wants to attend our Connecting Through Cancer group, which is designed for patients and survivors, they can attend the virtual option, which is offered weekly. And alongside that, we have a caregiver or friends and family virtual group. So they do have that option as well.
Okay. So support groups is a really fundamental one of your 5 pillars or 5 programs. And then What are the other 4 programs?
So then we have educational workshops. So part of our headquarters, they have a research and training institute. So all of the educational material that we present on is medically reviewed and research and evidence-based. which gives us confidence, that we can make sure that we're presenting accurate information. And that's called Frankly Speaking About Cancer. So I know a lot of hospital systems, even that aren't affiliated with a cancer support community or a Gilda's Club, do utilize those materials. And then we can do other topics as well. So if we're hearing from cancer patients or their families that maybe there's a topic, maybe somebody's struggling with sleep issues or nutrition, we can do something that maybe isn't in part of that series that's an educational topic. And those are held, we do those twice a month, and those are also available virtual. So people can access those across the state or really across the country, anywhere that they're at.
And do those programs, are they a live stream that people can attend in real time? And then do they also, are they posted so that people can watch them at their convenience?
Yes, most of those they can attend in person or virtually. And then we do have a library on our website that they can go back and access different topics that we've presented on.
Okay.
And then after educational, we have healthy lifestyle. So we do mat yoga, chair yoga, meditation, creative sessions. We'll do kind of art therapy type classes, just a variety of things where we've done some Tai Chi. So just a variety of things to help them, manage not only the stress, but help with some of the management of the symptoms and side effects of the treatment.
Okay.
And then we have social activities. So we bring in therapy dogs. We have cooking and conversations where they'll pick a recipe. Our members pick a recipe and we get the ingredients and they just sit around the kitchen and make the recipe together and talk and just have that social time. I mentioned the meals that we do before support groups is another social one. And then we'll do, holiday parties. We do a big Easter egg hunt. We have Noogie Fest, which is named after Gilda Radner and the noogies that they gave each other on Saturday Night Live. That's a really well-attended community event. So just a variety of social things for them to connect, where they may not even talk about cancer, just have that connection. And then the last one that we do is resources and referrals. So if we can't provide them with something, we'll connect them with something either locally or nationally, depending on what their needs are.
Okay. And do you also have a peer-to-peer referral network where you match cancer patients with someone who's already in your community that has been through your training?
Yeah, so we do that with, can be on a variety of things. So it might be somebody maybe that has a similar diagnosis, or maybe we've matched people that, one we had was a young mom and she's like, I don't care if she has the same diagnosis. I just want somebody that's, trying to manage a diagnosis and has young children. So kind of depending on what their needs are, but yes, we can connect them with somebody that's going through a similar journey and kind of be that peer-to-peer support.
Great. What sort of a geographic catchment do you have? I would assume that the patients you serve are those that are getting treated at the cancer centers in the communities that you are that you're at. How many counties and in the surrounding area do those cancer centers serve?
So we serve it ranges anywhere between 15 and 18 counties a year. Obviously, most of them are coming from Scott and Rock Island County. But I would say probably a good maybe 50-mile radius around the Quad Cities is where we will see people coming. And we do some outreach in Clinton. So we'll do a support group there as well. And then as we are testing out these virtual programs we're doing across the state, our hope is eventually we can expand and do some in-person programs in other communities as well.
Yeah, it sounds like, you really have a broad and deep group of services, as many of us are doing. In fact, as we're doing this very minute, we're trying to figure out how to do things in real time, in person, but also do things virtually. And I would imagine your organization is looking at strategies for how you might be able to expand services to those that are out in rural Iowa or Illinois, or it just doesn't, the day of the week you have the support group is the day they work or something like that.
Yeah, we always say, that is one positive thing that came out of COVID, because we had always talked about that, cancer patients, when they just don't feel well enough even to get out, or their immune system is compromised, they need to stick close to home. And those might be the times where they need the support the most. And so pre-COVID, we didn't really have a way to serve them. And so with all the technology that came out as a result of COVID, we're able to do that now. But yeah, you brought up a good point, with us being in such a rural community, and really in the Quad Cities too, when we look at our national footprint, we are one of the smallest communities to have a Gilda's Club. So we're considered rural, even in what we consider, big city here in Iowa. But yeah, it's definitely a challenge. And, as you know, the stats of Iowa having the second highest rate of cancer, we know there's a lot of work and a lot of people that need that support across the state.
Do you have the ability, either through your staff or the staff at the cancer centers that you work at, to provide one-on-one counseling for patients who might need more intense mental health counseling, either dealing with fear of recurrence or, facing mortality?
So right now we don't. That is actually on our long-term strategic plan to eventually do some one-on-one counseling. Some of our larger affiliates do offer that. I think a lot of them will do, maybe 5 free sessions, and then they'll refer them out. Because that is another really nice benefit of all of our programs. We don't charge for anything that we do. So that is something we're hoping to add down the road. So right now, everything we do is pretty much around that group concept.
And have you seen that the cancer centers that you're in, are they doing more and more virtual appointments for patients?
Yeah, I think that is something that they have expanded to, and is something that has been more viable. I know with the challenge of the shortage of oncologists too, I hear that sometimes, some of those are done over video. But I think the majority still in our area are in person.
Right. And Joy, as the executive director, are you also the chief fundraiser for the organization?
Fortunately, I have a couple people. Well, yes. When I first started, I was about the sole one, but we have a development director, and then we have a marketing and communications that does like all of our event fundraising. So I have some help. Thank goodness.
Great. And who are some of your major supporters?
So we're really fortunate. Both hospital systems are very gracious and offer a lot of support to us. We have another local Iowa cancer specialist and oncology clinic here that supports us. University of Iowa, there's a lot of local funders that we have, the Quad City Community Foundation, Riverboat Development Authority. We have Scott County Regional Authority. So just Moline Community Foundation, just a variety of local funders, and then a lot of individuals that support us as well. Centric Credit Union is another big supporter of ours. So we're just very fortunate, like I said, with our services being free and we don't bill insurance. We really count on that support from our community.
Yeah, that's wonderful. And you've been in the community for, did you say 26 years?
Yeah, it'll be 27 years in November. So yeah.
That's
in
wonderful.
fact, when we first started, they told us they didn't think it would ever survive in that small of a community. So we're very proud that we're still here and a very strong organization.
Wonderful. Kelsey, you're the program director. What has been the most recent program that you added, and what is on your radar as programs that you see a need for that you're considering trying to develop in the future?
Yeah. So one of the latest and greatest and very popular programs that we offered is a freezer meal program. And so we work with a local meal prep service that preps and prepares meals for us and has graciously fundraised to put freezers in both of our clubhouses. She comes every Wednesday and stocks our freezers, and then patients, when they finish treatment, are able to stop by our clubhouse and grab a meal. No questions, no cost, and take that home. And it's one less barrier they have to worry about, whether they're going home to themselves or going home to a family to feed. That's been really a really wonderful service we've been able to offer. We just started that last April, and up to today's date, we have given over 1,200 meals, which is
Wow.
pretty great. In addition to that, last year we did open up a wig salon in our Davenport clubhouse, and we're getting ready to open a wig salon at our Moline clubhouse. And those are all gently donated wigs that anybody that's experiencing hair loss due to treatment can stop in and grab. We have a lot of people that I would say both hospital systems do give out vouchers, so they can actually go to a local company and pick out a free wig, but sometimes we want variety. And so it's nice that we can offer that variety to individuals. So those are kind of our two newest programs that we launched last year. And then what we're kind of looking forward to this year is, I think Joy kind of alluded to it, but we're hoping in April to launch an advanced cancer support group. We haven't offered anything like that in our existence, and it's kind of they're on their own unique journey when they're facing a terminal diagnosis or a lifelong diagnosis. So we wanted to give them the space to be able to process that. So that will hopefully launch in April. I'm trying to think if there's anything else.
How about specific? You did mention pediatric. Do you have a AYA or a young adult group?
So we have a children, family, and teens coordinator. Her name is Nora, and she's been with us just a little over a year. She really focuses on the growth of our youth and children programs. So she recently started family sessions last year, which have really taken off. And so once a month, she'll offer a Saturday program. Just this past Saturday, she did a pancakes and painting program to kind of capture that audience. Our other children and teens program happens on Tuesday evenings, and we realized that that could be a barrier to families that are working and going to school, that they're not able to give up a weeknight to come to our program. So her Saturday sessions have really been successful. And then with that, she's starting to plan our summer camp that will be in June. And any child that's impacted by cancer is definitely eligible to attend our camp. It is a week-long overnight camp that takes place in Maquoketa, Iowa, at Camp Shalom. And it's fully funded, so no child has to pay anything to attend the camp. And they get to really just go and be kids at camp and experience that. And then we go in on a daily basis and provide some type of activity. And then they do get to do a field trip one day into our Mercy One Genesis Cancer Center and get to explore the cancer center, meet with the oncologist, see the radiation department where mom or dad, grandma, grandpa got infusion treatments. And that tends to be their favorite day of the camp.
And so I take it that the camp isn't just for children who've had cancer, they're for children whose family members have
Correct.
had cancer.
Yeah, we can accommodate children with a diagnosis, but that doesn't tend to be our audience that we see.
Mm-hmm.
We see a lot of children that have a parent with a diagnosis or a grandparent, or even a child that maybe has lost somebody to a diagnosis.
Okay.
So anybody, any child impacted is eligible to attend that camp. We usually are able to host up to 40 campers.
And children who live in other parts of the state would be eligible to apply for that
Absolutely.
camp as well.
Yeah.
What's the name of the program? The camp you said is Camp Shalom, but it's a campsite that does different things, different weeks of the year, and you do it 1 week a year. Is
That is correct. Yeah. And our camp has traditionally been named Camp Genesis, but Genesis was just merged with Mercy One. And so we're kind of still figuring out what our camp is going to be named. We're in conversation with Mercy One on kind of identifying that, but we're looking forward to planning those activities.
Yeah. So let's talk some about maybe the services that would be available to cancer survivors, cancer patients that live, say, in the Des Moines area. So which of your services are set up to accommodate individuals who aren't there in the Quad Cities?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. We actually just launched a virtual calendar that kind of identifies what those programs would be available to somebody outside of the Quad Cities. So if somebody is living in Des Moines but wanting to access support, they would be eligible to attend those virtual support groups. So whether they're the person with the diagnosis or a caregiver, there's groups they can jump into for that. In addition to that, we do have our on-demand library where they could access any previous educational workshops we have done. We even have some recorded yoga sessions and meditation sessions that they would have access to. And then, like Joy had mentioned, our educational workshops that we do twice a month are live streamed. And so they could participate in those sessions, whether they want to join in live or watch that recording at a later date with the on demand. That is definitely possible. And then our Cancer Companions program, which you were talking about, the peer-to-peer, that's something we would be able to hopefully make that connection too, as long as they're okay with that connection not being somebody maybe in the same city as them. Maybe that connection is more of a phone call relationship or a texting relationship. So that is definitely a possibility as well.
I think you have a much broader choice of support groups than we have here in Des Moines. And I think we focus our support group on the living with cancer, so the stage 4.
Okay.
And then with Above and Beyond Cancer, it's more activity oriented that has support there with it. But then I do have patients that sometimes want kind of a more traditional support group, and they don't fit into the living with cancer stage 4. Let's put your George, if you could put the website back on the screen. So this will be the website that anyone could go to, and on that website they could find a way to
get started.
Get started with, if they wanted to be part of a support group that was virtual.
Yeah, and I can kind of walk you through that process to somebody that may be watching and would be interested in getting started. So we always like people to attend a welcome meeting. So if you see a support group you're interested in joining, the first step would be to join a welcome meeting. And we do offer those virtually throughout the month. So if you take a peek at our online calendar and select virtual Clubhouse at the top, it will show you those times that we have coming up. And then we just actually launched yesterday an on-demand welcome meeting. So we realized that sometimes people are busy and can't always make a 12 o'clock noon welcome meeting or a 4 o'clock welcome meeting. And so we did an on-demand welcome meeting that we just launched yesterday that they can watch at their convenience. And then we get notified when they watch it, and we reach out to make that actual personable connection. We do also have a distress screening tool similar to what a lot of hospitals use as well. Ours is a little bit more cancer focused, of course. And we do use that screening tool on patients and then also the caregiver. We have one for both. That just really helps us kind of identify what needs they're having and meet them where they're at, whether that's concerns for staying active during a diagnosis, or maybe they're having concerns with transportation or intimacy, whatever those concerns are, we're able to identify through that survey and assist them in real time.
And individuals who attend the support groups virtually, the groups are hybrid. So some people will be in the support group in person and others will be in the same support group virtually, or do you have them separated as virtual support groups and in person?
That's a great question. So currently we have them separated. So we have an all-person support group, and then we have an all-virtual support group. We do have the capability to do a hybrid. We have the equipment, but we found that it's most successful when we have those environments kind of separated.
Yeah.
It's been more comfortable for the participants.
Yes, it is kind of awkward when some people are in the room and some are, on the screen and trying to interact. Who facilitates your support groups? You have a master's in social work. Do you have social workers, nurses? What are the credentials of the individuals that are facilitating the support groups?
That's a wonderful question as well. All of our support groups are professionally led. The majority of our facilitators do have a master's level social work degree. We're onboarding 2 counselors right now that are clinicians. And then I'm trying to think if we have anybody with a varying background outside of social work. That seems to be the primary degree that we have currently.
Okay, wonderful. Yeah, no, I think we're going to open it up to some questions because we got lots of people in the room here.
Yeah.
Before we do that, though, Joy or Kelsey, either one, something about your organization that we haven't talked about yet that you think we should know?
One thing that did just come to mind, it's actually one of my favorite programs, but probably one of our most underutilized programs. It's called Open to Options. It's one of the few things that we do that is one-on-one. So it's we call it treatment decision counseling. Kelsey can probably go into more of the details, but it's really just, we're not going to make those treatment decisions for them. But if they're, either newly diagnosed or maybe they're at a fork in the road in their treatment, they need to make a decision. Maybe their treatment they're using is no longer working and they need to pivot. And so it's really just sitting down with them one-on-one with one of our licensed mental health professionals that will assist them just kind of getting their questions together and identifying what their goals are, what's important to them, so that they can take those questions to the doctors for those treatment options and really make the decision that is best for them. And so, like I said, it's one of our most underutilized, but everybody that uses it is like, this was so helpful. And doctors have told us they love it because they come prepared and they, we'll even take little notes for them so they can go in with their list of questions. And so that's one of my favorite things. And that is something that we could do virtually as well. So that is something that somebody in Des Moines could have access to.
Yeah. That's very interesting. I would imagine that some doctors support that process, and there may be other doctors that are maybe not as supportive of having that process in place. I can just kind of see different scenarios. How do patients find their way to that service? Are they mostly patients that are already in the support groups and know and trust you as a resource for helping them with decision making?
Yeah, Kelsey might be able to answer that better than I can. I'll let you answer that.
Yeah, so I want to make it very clear, there is no medical advice being given in these sessions whatsoever. We really help people kind of clear their minds, put it to paper. So I actually just did a session with a participant on Monday who was making a treatment decision that day, interesting enough. And what I did in that session was just be the note taker. And so they have a lot that they're processing, quality of life, what's important to them. If they choose this decision, what's the side effects? And so I'm kind of a scribe in that session. I have 4 different categories that I'm focusing on, kind of like the history, what's important to share with your doctor when you're making your treatment decision. Who's your support system, medically and personally? Who's your care team? Who's that support at home? What's important to you, your concerns, and then the question section. The question section is really kind of that section that is probably most important that they're taking back to their doctor to make a more hopefully informed, empowered treatment decision. Mm-hmm. So I do want to make that very clear there. It is more of a counseling session in the sense of helping them put their mind at ease. And I will use myself as an example. When I go to the doctors, whether that's a yearly appointment, there's so many questions that I'm trying to remember to write down because I don't want to miss my opportunity to ask that. And so that is what that session is for, is to help them get all that captured. So when they're in that appointment with their oncologist, they can be like, these are the questions I have for you.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, even that sort of service could be useful even at the beginning, and not just at a fork in the road, but at the beginning. But at the beginning, they don't really know you exist yet because they haven't had the opportunity to know what the services are that are available to cancer patients.
Yes. And you had asked, how does somebody find out about this? So we do mention it in the welcome meeting. So they're educated at that point. It is on our website. And the person that I actually served on Monday has not actually attended any of our programs. They were able to find that resource through our website and had called. And I was like, wow, this is wonderful. I'm so happy that you heard about this program.
Yeah, wonderful. Well, let's open up to questions. We've got a live studio audience here. And if you're watching us live streaming right now, please put your question in the comments section of the software that you're using to watch us, and we will pick that question up. And we'll start with Poon. Do you have a way of sort of calculating what percentage of the cancer patients at either of the two cancer centers actually utilize your services?
That's a great question.
It's a hard number to come up with because you kind of have to know, because you don't have the records of everybody you don't see, so you don't probably know. What would you predict? 10%, 50%?
I'm guessing it's probably closer to that 15%. I know when we went into the hospitals, just thinking like the percentage of cancer patients that they estimate are in our region, we were serving about 10%. And with our growth, I'm guessing it's probably closer to 15%. And we recognize not everybody that goes through a cancer diagnosis needs emotional support. Some people are able to manage that on their own. So we recognize that not every single person needs access either, but we'd like it to be higher.
And as I heard, if I heard correctly, moving your physical location into the cancer center had a huge impact on increasing the number of patients you were had the opportunity to serve.
Yeah, we were really hesitant, I'll be honest, to move into the hospitals because one of the beauty of our programs that people loved was they liked as Kelsey mentioned, we were in a mansion on the hill that overlooked the river and had this very, warm home setting. And so we were very mindful of that when we made the decision to move into the hospitals, to still make sure that people walked in and they felt like they were walking into somebody's home, that it didn't feel like a sterile hospital environment. So Kelsey's background, you can see there, is one of our support group rooms. So we really tried to do that. And we hear that a lot from patients when they're coming in. They're like, I forget I'm in the hospital. But yeah, just being right there, when you get a cancer diagnosis, you are so extremely overwhelmed and there's so many things going through your head. And so having to go to one more appointment or go check out one more place can be overwhelming and can be a barrier. And so by being right there in the hospitals, it makes it very accessible that, in between their appointment or as they're leaving their appointment, they'll pop in and just see what we're all about.
I have to admit, I don't know the geography of the Quad Cities real well. What's the distance in miles from one of your centers to the other center?
9 miles.
Oh, so quite close together.
Yeah.
But there's a bridge, and that bridge people do not like to cross over to the other state if they're on one side or the other. So,
gotcha. So is one of the hospitals in Iowa and one is in Illinois?
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Great. Other questions? Sherry.
Do you have any services if a person was worried about their last will and testament, setting up paperwork to move forward with, or do you have resources where you can send them?
It's It's a great question. We don't have any ongoing program, but we have done educational series on advanced directives and those types of conversations. I would always encourage, if that's something you're looking for, reach out to us and let us know just a little bit more information on what you're looking for, and we can do our best to kind of navigate or align you with the resources that you're specifically looking for.
Kelsey, do the two hospitals you serve, do they have palliative care services? So that's what Sherry just asked about, is something that's kind of the bread and butter of palliative care teams. Do the two hospitals that you serve have palliative care?
They both do, yes. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Just in our center, that would be the resource that our palliative care has, besides the physician and nurse practitioner, a social worker and chaplain, and doing the durable power of attorney, doing the sort of getting things in order is one of the things that palliative care does. And obviously, hospice has great resources to help with that as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. George.
Something top of mind this time of year always, and it's cost and transportation, particularly with the weather the way that it is. Do you provide, maybe you already discussed that, but any assistance in those areas?
So transportation and lodging.
Yeah.
Those tend to be big barriers in our service area as well. We do our best to seek out resources that can be helpful to that. And I believe, is it Above and Beyond Cancer has a grant that can help with lodging.
Yeah, anywhere in Iowa. So anyone who's getting care in Iowa more than 50 miles from their home can get lodging support, hotels in Iowa through the Above and Beyond Cancer hotel program.
Yeah, which is wonderful. We often give out the resource called Joe's House, and it's not physically a house, a lodging house, but they have partnerships with a lot of the hotel chains across the U.S. and have discount codes. If you go to their website, you can actually type in the hospital that you're receiving treatment at, and it will pull up any of the surrounding hotels that have discounts. Or if they have like Hope Lodges nearby or Ronald McDonald Homes, it will even show those in that area as well. So that's called Joe's House.
Oh, thank you. I had not heard of that.
Yeah, it's a really cool resource.
All right. Other questions? Any online questions? Well, this has been very helpful. Did you have a question, Pooh?
Yes. So you said you have a website. Do you also have flyers that you give out to newly diagnosed patients?
We do have physical flyers, and we can also, we have like a listserv or an e-blast that people can get on. Specifically, if you're not in the Quad Cities, we have a certain e-blast that would go out to you to only let you know virtual options. And then I do want to just also put a little plug in that we just launched our cancer support app last month in December, which really is kind of a one-stop shop for accessing any of these programs and services at your fingertips. So we do have a specific link to bring you or bridge you to our network partner, and I'd be happy to share that with Dr. Deming to share out.
Great. And
But
so
that-
did you design the app? Did you work with a local company or a national company to come up with the app?
So we're very fortunate. Our national cancer support community organization actually designed and did kind of the bread and butter in the footwork to get the app up and running. And then they have allowed each network partner to customize it to build in our specific resources that are unique to our service area. So when I say we have a link, that is for anybody that's in the state of Iowa and that part of Illinois we serve.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Yeah, as we get into a more virtual world with to have all of those options available is really going to be helpful. So I really admire what you have created and what you have continued to operate for 20 almost 27 years. And the fact that your services are available to people in Iowa who don't live in the Quad Cities is really commendable. So we've already started sharing some of your information. I think I'm most excited about the support groups because I do know that there's a lot of people that are looking for particular support groups, as you mentioned, maybe prostate cancer or GYN, and feel a little uncomfortable with general support groups where you've got men and women together for some anatomic situations. So it's wonderful that you have so many support groups. If you're watching this program and you know somebody that would benefit by watching it, it's going to be available on demand beginning tomorrow at the Above and Beyond Cancer YouTube channel and also the Mercy Cancer Center website. And thanks again to Joy Bush and Kelsey Allen with Cancer Support Community, also known as Gilda's Club of Iowa and Illinois. And thanks for what you do and for sharing your story with us this evening. And everybody watching, I hope you'll join us again next week. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.